In this video, we're going to look at how we can create our own custom charts using a few sophisticated formatting techniques. Why would we need a custom chart given how many fantastic chart options Excel now makes available to us? Well, it's possible that you won't have the latest version, so you might not have all those chart types. It's also possible that your data might need something a bit different, or it might be just that you want to grab your audience's attention by presenting something that looks a bit different. For whatever reason, you may find you need to create your own custom charts, and what we're going to do is look at some techniques that will help you do that. In this example, Rowan wants to create a visualization that will demonstrate how the population in the UK has aged over the last 24 years. What he wants is a sort of funnel style chart, but he wants to show the female data on the left and the male data on the right. And Excel's funnel chart doesn't give us that option. So we're going to create a custom chart using a standard bar chart. And it's going to look something like this. Now I'm going to get rid of that. Rowan has already done some data preparation, so just using a SUMIFS function, he's summarized the percentage male and female data for each age group for the year selected in I3. So we can actually come and change the year, and you'll see the data updates. Now, there's one more thing we need to do before we create the chart. We need to make all the female values negative because we actually want them to show left of the y-axis. Now, the correct thing to do would be to come in here, double-click, and just pop a minus in there at the front of the formula. But I'd actually like to show you quite a neat little option if you actually have to work off the original data set. So we need to convert all these values to negative. In other words, we need to multiply them by -1. So I'm going to pop -1 into G2, and then I'm going to press Control Enter, which is like pressing Enter, but I stay in the cell. I'm then going to copy, Control C, and I'm going to select the data I want to make negative. Control Shift down arrow. I'm now going to come to my Home tab, and I'm going to find the Paste. I'm going to click the drop down, and I'm going to choose Paste Special. One of the special options is you can apply an operation, and we want to multiply. I then click OK, and all my values are now negative. So really neat little option. Okay, let's go and create our chart. I'm going to select the data from L3 down to N23, and then I'm going to come to Insert. I'm going to come to my Charts group, find my column chart, and I'm just going for a 2D bar chart. Let's now move that into place so it's covering the data, and just make it a little bit bigger. A few problems. First of all, the bars are not lining up, which is normal behavior, but not what we want. So with our chart selected, keyboard shortcut Control-1 to open up our formatting panel, and click onto one of the series, doesn't matter which one. And then we're going to come to our series options. And what we want to do here is change our series overlap to be 100%. And you can see now they're lining up beautifully. The gap widths are quite wide, which is making my bars narrow. So if I change that to be 50%, you'll see my bars get a little fatter. Okay, much better, but we still have a fairly large problem with our vertical axis. Because these values are actually negative, the axis labels are lining up next to the axis, which is again normal, but not what we want. So we're going to click onto our vertical axis, and then in our panel on the right, we're going to choose Axis Options. And this is quite a well-hidden little feature, but if you come down to Labels, and Label Position, you can choose to position them low. And that moves them to the left of the data point rather than right next to the axis. So that's looking much better. Okay, we also need to make a few tweaks to our horizontal axis. So I'm going to click onto that next. We actually need to lock the minimum and maximum because otherwise, as the values change, the axis could change and it will look a little strange. So we are going to come into our minimum and make that -10. And then I'm going to press Tab twice and make that 10. So same values, but now they're going to stay fixed rather than adjusting. And then one more thing. Although these are negative values, we don't want them to show as negatives. So remember our custom number formatting we looked at week 1? Well, that's about to come in handy again. I'm going to scroll down to number. And at the moment it's applying a general format, but we need our own format. So where it says format code, just remove the general. And we want it to be 0 if it's positive, semicolon, 0 if it's negative, semicolon, and 0 if it's 0. And now if you click add, axis fixed. Right, that's the main formats we want to change. So I'm just going to close that panel now. But there are a couple of other tweaks. So we don't want our grid lines. I'm going to switch those off. But more importantly, we need a good chart title. Only our chart title is actually going to change depending on our year, because we need to see this as the UK population data for whichever year we've selected. So I'm going to move this down a little. We're going to create a really simple formula in P3. I'm going to type equals. I'm going to open my double quotes because I'm putting in text, and I'm going to put UK population and a space, and then I'm going to close my quotes for my text. And now I need to join it to the year. The official term is concatenate, and I can do that using an ampersand. So I'm going to type ampersand, click on 1997, and then press enter. Now all I need to do is click back onto my chart title. Make sure you clicked on the border, not inside the box. Come into my formula bar, type equals, and just like a shape, we can link it up to the value in a cell. And when I press enter, there's my population. I'm going to move the chart back into place now. And if we come and change our years, if I click the drop down and set that back to 1996, the chart title updates. So your chart title can also be linked to a cell, and you can make it a bit more dynamic. If we now go through the chart, you'll see at the moment, 1996, our biggest population was in the early 30s. If I click the drop down and change it to 2003, you'll see it's gone up to the late 30s. And if I now jump forward in time to 2019, our biggest population band is actually in the early 50s. So we can see that the population has aged over the last 24 years, but having to come and click these drop downs is not great. So the last step we'd like to do is animate the chart. You may recall in week 1, we looked at a way of recording a macro to do that animation, and you could absolutely do that here. All you need to do is come in and record yourself clicking through each year. Not the most efficient though. I'm just moving these over here. So actually I've given you another macro. It's already written for you just so you can see an alternative. And let's have a quick look at it. I'm going to press Alt F11. And this has brought me to my VBA editor. And here's our macro. It's called Chart Animate. And instead of going through and changing the year one step at a time, we've used a for loop. And what the for loop will do is it will, using this kind of, it's like a little space in memory. It's called a variable, and it contain a value. And it will start with the value 1996, and then each time we loop through, it will add 1 to it. And then this line of code will take whatever value is sitting in that count and pop it into I3. So it's literally going to loop through, changing the value until it hits 2019, and then it's going to drop out. So there's an alternative. You can copy paste code, you now know how, or if you want to record yourself doing the macro, give it a go, it'll work just as well. And then here, this you could definitely record yourself doing this. This is to reset the value in I3 back to 1996. Okay, I'm going to close that up. Let's go and hook up our macros. So I'm going to right click on Animate, Assign Macro, and we're going to choose Chart Animate and OK. And then the same thing for the reset, right click, Assign Macro, and this time Chart Reset and OK. Click away for a moment. I'm going to click Animate, and you can actually see it scrolling through the years and how the population is changing over time. And if I click Reset, that sets it back to 1996. So what we've looked at here are a few really interesting techniques for creating your own custom charts to add that wow factor to your visualizations.